Hello everyone, this is Dartt, and today I'll be talking about the new Survival Hunter build from Icy-Veins. Like the other hunter guides on that site, this build was theory crafted and authored by Azortharian of Vanguard. If you don't know, he was formerly a raid leader of the guild Method. Be sure to check out the full guide and Azortharian's Twitch stream from the links in the description below. Now I want to start off by saying that I'm not a big fan of the concept of a melee hunter. I tinkered with it a little bit during Burning Crusades when you couldn't PvP without being swarmed by everyone to prevent you from getting a shot off. Honestly though, the last time I used a melee weapon as a hunter was during Wrath of the Lich King when my bow broke in the middle of a guild raid on Azortharian and the only thing I had was my polearm. However, it does seem that survival is very much the flavor of the month spec going into Legion, so just to give myself as many options as possible, I decided to try it out. I will say that it's not that bad. The rotation isn't a two-button masher's dream, but it's not hard to pick up, and Harpoon is just fun. A lot has changed with survival spec recently, and I barely know where to begin. I guess I should start off by repeating what I mentioned earlier, that Survival Hunter is purely melee and not ranged. There are a lot of potential pros and cons to this, especially where traps are concerned. You do have a drop-down trap button menu, but you do not have the trap launcher from before. From the little bit I've tested this, it seems that traps are now close range only, if not point-blank range. So be very aware of this if you choose the spec, and be prepared to devote a little time adjusting to the new mechanics. Also, this is a melee class. You will not be able to execute any of its abilities with a ranged weapon. You will need some form of two-handed polearm. If you do have a hunter, you should receive or have received an interim blue quality weapon in the mail to experiment with. For my part, I purchased a baleful weapon blank from Tanan Jungle, and then empowered it and purchased a couple of Valor upgrades to keep my metrics credible, if not equal to, my range specs. The nice thing about melee survival is that while you have a pet to assist you in melee, your DPS won't suffer horribly if your pet glitches and gets stuck in a place which can be a huge concern for Beast Mastery. Also, it has a lot more single target control than Marksman currently does. So if there are a lot of crowd control effects, you don't have to necessarily worry about the cleave effects of barrage or sidewinders breaking those. The downside is, of course, that you are now melee. You don't get the perk of playing a walking machine gun turret anymore. You'll definitely want to brush up on your strafing and mouse looking if you're a poor schmo that's used to keyboard turning and frantically stabbing number buttons on your keyboard, which you shouldn't be doing anyway. If you are, now might be a good time to upgrade to a 12-button gaming mouse and break those bad habits. For optimal DPS throughput, talent choices are pretty straightforward, with a few utility and playstyle challenge choices along the way. At level 15, both Throwing Axes and Way of the Mok'Nathal are viable. Throwing Axes tosses 3 axes at an enemy, each dealing 250% of your attack power as physical damage. Way of the Mok'Nathal causes your Raptor strikes to grant Mok'Nathal tactics, which increases your attack power by 3% for 8 seconds, stacking up to 4 times. Of the two, Throwing Axes will gain you the highest amount of DPS, but personally, I went with Way of the Mok'Nathal to simplify the rotation to make it easier to learn and keep track of. I may switch to Axes later when I'm more comfortable with the build, or the extra DPS becomes super important. At level 30, Snake Hunter is regarded as the only viable talent worth taking. It instantly grants you 3 charges of Mongoose Bite, which, if you use it properly, is an incredible DPS boost. For level 45, Post Haste is the go-to mobility talent of the three offered. For survival, Post Haste causes Harpoon to also free you from all movement impairing effects and increases your movement speed by 60% for 8 seconds. Now, if you're a hunter who loves the disengage, 180-degree mouse look spin, Post Haste dash as much as I do, you're going to want to spend some time practicing with this one because it's going to be a completely different thing. Of the level 60 talents, you are encouraged to take Improved Traps. This reduces the cooldown of Freezing Trap by 15% and the cooldown of Explosive Trap and Tar Trap by 50%. At level 75, it's pretty much your choice which of the three you prefer, but Ranger's Net is strongly recommended. Now the choices here are Sticky Bomb, which hurls a concussive grenade at your target, which sticks to them and explodes after 3 seconds. That knocks back all nearby enemies. Camouflage, which allows you and your pet to blend into your surroundings and gain stealth for 60 seconds. While you are camouflaged, you heal for 2% of your health every second. And finally, Ranger's Net, which hurls a net at the enemy, running your target for 3 seconds and then reducing movement speed by 50% for 15 seconds. Damage may break that effect. For now, I'm going with Camouflage over Ranger's Net simply because I like having a form of stealth to fall back on. If Ranger's Net has a huge advantage in a lot of situations, I will probably keep Tombs available to switch to it as needed. For level 90, Dragon's Fire Grenade is simply the best choice. It hurls a Dragon's Fire Grenade at your target that explodes, inflicting 1280% of your attack power, adds fire damage over 8 seconds, and reduces movement speed by 20%. The flames from it also hit nearby enemies for 160% of your attack power every second. Finally, for level 100, Expert Trapper is the recommended talent. This talent improves all your traps in the following ways. Freezing Trap. When the incapacitate effect ends, the victim and all nearby enemies' movement speed is reduced by 50% for 4 seconds. Explosive Trap. Increases damage to the triggering enemy by 75%. Tar Trap. Enemies moving through the tar have a chance to be rooted in place for 4 seconds. Steel Trap. Your Steel Trap also deals an immediate 500% of attack power as bleed damage when triggered. And finally, Caltrops. The damage from that is increased by 50%. For this build, you'll mainly be using freezing and explosive traps, and especially the explosive trap, part of that will feed into your DPS directly. Moving on to the opening sequence against, say, a harder elite boss. You'll want to start off with a Dranic Agility Potion or better. Then you cast Explosive Trap, then Dragon's Fire Grenade, then cast Lacerate. At that point, you activate Aspect of the Eagle and spam Mongoose Bite until you have no charges left. Then activate Snake Hunter. Rinse, repeat. Spam Mongoose Bite some more until you have no charges. Then proceed with your normal rotation, but you always want to prioritize Mongoose Bite. The rotation for my particular variation of this build is Explosive Trap, Dragon Fire Grenade, Lacerate, Mongoose Bite spam, unless Aspect of the Eagle is coming off of cooldown soon. If so, wait and pop that first. Then use Flanking Strike to dump focus if you're very close to the cap. As far as cooldowns are concerned, always try to use Aspect of the Eagle before a long chain of Mongoose strikes, and always before using Snake Hunter. That being said, try to use Snake Hunter as often as possible during a fight, but make smart use of it. there isn't much difference as far as multi-target rotation goes, with the exception of swapping out Flanking Strike for Carve for additional cleave damage. I will say up front that my variation on this build probably won't be optimal DPS-wise, but it will be very easy to pick up and use in this very sink or swim 7.03 pre-Legion environment. As time goes on, I will be, and you definitely will want to as well, tweak your talents for optimal play, experiment, see what works, and you'll definitely need to change this up, and tinker with it as you start gaining legendaries and artifact traits. Once again, this is Dartt. If you found this helpful, hit that like button. If you play a hunter or are new to the class, I'd love to hear from you, so please leave comments below with your insights. And if you watch my videos regularly, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't. That would make me a very happy gamer. So, good luck, have fun, go kill some bosses.